Now, a special presentation on your SEC station, WAAY 31, the game you wanted, Alabama at Georgia. Max and Trevor are here to get you game ready. Sponsored by Hobbs Jewelers. The battle between the hedges starts now.
Hello and welcome into the Battle Between the Hedges Alabama-Georgia special. I'm Max Cohan and he's Trevor Denton, but we're not here to talk about ourselves. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll get you ready for one of the most highly anticipated matchups of the college football season.
For the last decade, Alabama and Georgia have been two of the most feared programs in the sport, winning a combined 5 national titles and playing for 7. This meeting between the Tide and Bulldogs may not be a top 5 battle, but it is a game that has the potential to change the trajectory of their seasons.
But before we get to this year's meeting, let's take a look back at some of the biggest moments in this historic rivalry. The Tide and Bulldogs may not be traditional rivals anymore, but they were at one point, meeting every season from 1944 to 1965. The final game during that run ended in controversial fashion as the Bulldogs scored a touchdown on a 73-yard flea flicker and won the game 18-17 with a 2-point conversion. The teams met occasionally over the next several decades, but then we got another iconic game in 2008 when Alabama went into Athens and dominated then number 3 Georgia 41-30. The final score doesn't really tell the full story as the Tide went into the break leading 31-0. Then in January of 2018, the teams met in the College Football Playoff National Championship game. In a wild affair that saw everything, including a double-digit comeback, quarterback change, and missed field goal attempt as time expired, the Tide got it done with one throw in overtime. And on a cold Indianapolis night in January of 2022, Kirby Smart finally got his revenge. The Tide and Bulldogs got together in a rematch of that season's SEC championship game. Bama won the first fight, but Georgia took home the title that night with a masterful 33-18 win. In the Nick Saban era, you knew Alabama was going to start a season strong. It was just a given. And if they were going to have any stumbles, it would usually come against a conference opponent or in postseason play. But those days are over. And after suffering 4 losses in Kalen DeBoer's first season in Tuscaloosa, Tide fans have already suffered 1 more this year. From 2002 to 2024, Alabama was unbeatable in season openers. Mike Shula and Nick Saban both had perfect records in Game 1s, but Kalen DeBoer can't say that. After a disappointing finish last year, Alabama rolled into Tallahassee ranked 8th in the nation and left with the fan base in shambles as the unranked Seminoles dominated them 31-17.
We got to do a better job, and we had opportunities there in the second half, but we gave them life. We gave them hope and confidence in the first half there. And then what it does is it puts you in a spot where you got to be perfect. You know, I choose to believe we got a good football team, but you know, we can't play on our heels.
The loss in Florida, which in all fairness doesn't look so bad now with FSU 8th in the AP poll, put the pressure on Coach DeBoer and Ty Simpson, and the Tide took their frustrations out on UL Monroe, dominating the Warhawks 73-0. The Tide scored 10 touchdowns and racked up nearly 600 yards of offense in the team's most lopsided victory since 1951.
I thought the guys did a good job playing from snap to whistle and doing it over and over again for 60 minutes. So, you know, that was the challenge to the guys, and you know, that's what we got to build on. So, you know, I like that they really didn't feel like they looked at the scoreboard ever and just focused on being their best and bringing it.
Then it was on to Wisconsin, and for the second straight season, the Tide badgered the Badgers, showing off the pass game while shutting down Wisconsin's as Alabama rode a 38-14 win into the bye week.
Yeah, don't let off the gas. That's where we're at right now, and the guys have an energy right now that's becoming contagious. They see it and are reaping the rewards of it. They see what we're capable of. They know we're still so far from being where we need to be. But, you know, we've taken a couple steps here the last 2 weeks.
In 2021, Georgia beat Alabama for the national championship, ending a 41-year drought. Now, just 2 players remain from that roster. There's been a changing of the guard, and so far a younger, maybe hungrier team has gotten out to a 3-0 start in Athens.
Youthful exuberance. That's how Kirby Smart described his team entering the season.
With quarterback Carson Beck off to Miami and the usual exodus of players to the NFL, most of the Bulldogs roster is made up of underclassmen.
We've had practices that have been spirited. We had a great spring practice that we talked about the words fire, passion, and energy.
The Dogs opened the season against Marshall, and the Herd players weren't exactly bending the knee in the lead up to the game.
We're going to shock them. That's what I'm going to say. We're going to shock a lot of people. That's what I'm going to say.
But there wasn't much shocking about Georgia's Week 1 result. They beat the Herd 45-7. Gunnar Stockton flashed his ability, throwing for 2 touchdowns and rushing for 2 more. In their next game against Austin Peay, the weather was start and stop, and so was the offense. They scored a pedestrian 28 points against the FCS foe, with Georgia having enough firepower for their next game against Tennessee.
We'll find out. That's for sure.
Georgia traveled to Rocky Top, defending an 8-game winning streak against the Vols. Tennessee looked ready to end that multiple times. They jumped out to a 21-7 lead and had a chance to end the game in regulation, but they missed a 43-yard field goal with 3 seconds left. Then Georgia won in overtime for the 3rd time in their last 6 games. With clutch throws late in the contest, Stockton showed he's ready for SEC play. So that brings us to Saturday. 2 teams already battle-tested in September, ready to continue one of the top rivalries in the sport. And when you look at this game, it really seems like Alabama has to win this one if they want any shot of remaining in the playoff discussion, even this early in the season, Max.
Yeah, Trevor. I mean, if they're going to get it done, they're going to have to get their key players to step up. And everything on this team starts with Ty Simpson. The quarterback has been truly special in wins over ULM and Wisconsin, completing nearly every pass he throws and finding ways to get out of trouble and into the end zone. And for Simpson to succeed, he needs his receivers to do their job. Now, there's no denying that Ryan Williams has superstar potential, but right now, Jeremy Bernard is the guy. The senior has 15 receptions for 275 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he's even rushed 1 in. And of course, the defense will need to find a way to keep the Dogs out of the end zone, and Deontay Lawson will need to get guys to the ground. The redshirt senior leads the Tide in tackles and will have to add to his tally if they want any chance of winning.
The path seemed set in stone. Carson Beck would follow Stetson Bennett, then he'd waltz to the NFL after helping Georgia collect some more hardware. For 2 years, that plan went according to plan, but now instead of throwing for the red and black, Beck is thriving at Miami. Now Gunnar Stockton's the trigger man for Georgia's offense, and so far he's looked up to the task with 7 touchdowns and no turnovers. He played especially clutch in that win over Tennessee. The Bulldogs really needed new receivers to emerge this year after drops plagued them in 2024. Enter Zachariah Branch, a blazing track star from USC. The former Trojan leads the way with 181 yards, and he could score from any spot on the field. Another California transplant anchors the ground attack. Sophomore Nate Frazier could become the next in a long line of superb Georgia running backs. On defense, keep an eye on sophomore safety KJ Bolden. The tackling machine in Ballhawk has already picked off a pass this year and even blocked a punt.
Now, even with back-to-back blowouts, the fans still don't seem to believe in this Alabama team, but a win this weekend could change everything. To have any chance in Athens, the Tide are going to have to give Ty time. Simpson struggled against the Seminoles as FSU sacked him 3 times and held him to just a 53% completion percentage. With more time against the Warhawks and Badgers, he had no problem throwing touchdowns and winning. And going hand in hand with that is playing clean. Simpson has done a great job of taking care of the football so far, but it's a task that will be much tougher against a Kirby Smart team. If the quarterback can avoid takeaways, the Tide have a shot. And last but certainly not least, Alabama will need to stop the run. Georgia is averaging more than 200 yards per game with 10 rushing touchdowns so far. It's the ground game that got the Tide beat in Tallahassee, but if they haven't allowed a rushing score in the last 2 games, it might be something they can keep up.
For Georgia, one big key actually falls on the fans. They need to pack Sanford Stadium and go crazy on Saturday. Alabama struggled on the road, losing 5 of their last 6 games away from Tuscaloosa, and they committed 4 pre-snap penalties at Florida State. So a rowdy and loud crowd can actually impact this team. On the field, Georgia needs to rough up Ty Simpson. The Bulldogs barely breathed on Jalen Milroe last year, and then he put together a career performance. Obviously, Simpson's a much different player, but the Dogs Dogs still have to get home. The Volunteers' Joey Aguilar was kept relatively clean and threw for 371 yards 2 weeks ago. There are a lot more keys to the game for Georgia, but here's the most important one in my opinion. Just pretend they're not Alabama. The Dogs have dominated just about everybody in the country except for the Crimson Tide under Kirby Smart this week. They need to not make the moment too big, play loose, and not think too much about their bad record against the Crimson Tide.
One man knows what it takes to beat both Alabama and Georgia. That's former Auburn head coach and national champion Gene Chizik. We'll hear from him right after the break.
Now back to the battle between the hedges with Max and Trevor.
In the brief time that Kalen DeBoer has been Alabama's head coach, no one can touch the Tide at home. And while the team has won every game they've played in Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's the games outside Tuscaloosa that seem to be a problem. Last season, the Tide dropped 4 games, all of them either true road games or at neutral sites. Losses in Nashville, Knoxville, Norman, and Tampa made it clear that the team can be beat, and it happened again to start this season in Tallahassee. Now the coach knows his guys will have to prove they can get it done in a hostile environment against one of the best teams in the nation.
I ask these guys to empty the tank every single day, and they've done that, and that's what we got to do on Saturday. But we're going to have to be resilient, and understand that adversity against good football teams is going to happen, and know what our response is going to be, choose our response, and understand what that looks like even now, not just when it happens.
Since taking over for the Georgia program in 2016, Kirby Smart has put together a Hall of Fame resume. And while the coach already has 2 national titles to his name, he still has yet to beat the Crimson Tide in a non-playoff matchup. The coach has led the Dogs to 7 10-win seasons so far and has Georgia off to yet another unbeaten start. And while the Dogs have been tested and beat in each of the last 2 seasons, Coach Smart says his team prepares for every game the exact same way.
We prepare for every team the same. We don't go, okay, we got to prepare for Tennessee differently than we prepare for Alabama. We prepare by doing what they do and trying to do it better than they do it in terms of the look we give our guys, which is really hard to simulate. But I don't see it like, okay, Coach DeBoer's there, we got to prepare this kind of way. They're a really good football team with really good players. They've changed. Yeah, they've changed defensively and they've changed offensively. And you know what? They'll change every year as their personnel changes. Milroe was different than Ty, but they're both tremendous athletes, and our preparation is what we're trying to remain consistent.
This weekend's battle features 2 high-profile coaches, and so to get a deeper look at the matchup, we wanted a coach's perspective.
So who better to catch up with to talk about this rivalry than a guy that not only beat Alabama and Georgia, he did so in the same season and then won a national championship. Of course, we're talking about former Auburn head coach and current SEC Network analyst, Gene Chizik.
Don't you love these games this early in the season, man, when you can get everybody fired up? It's one of those iconic games, right, Max? I mean, there's always going to be some kind of drama. You know that. There was last year. It was a great back-and-forth game. But I think this is going to be an incredible game in Athens. I think you're looking at a team like Alabama that definitely the first week of the season would like to have that one back. Wasn't exactly what they wanted. But then when you play in a game like that, your only job at that point moving forward is to improve. And they've done that both weeks. And then you got Georgia over there, right? Came off an iconic win. One of those heavyweight slugfests in Knoxville. Both had 2 weeks to prepare for each other. I think it's going to be an insane game.
You obviously have a unique experience having coached against both of these teams, obviously in different iterations, but they were both rivals for you. I'm wondering which environment seems to be the advantage in this game. Is it going in to Athens, which is going to be more difficult for Alabama, or going into Bryant-Denny Stadium, which would have been more difficult for Georgia last year?
Here would be the analogy. You want your eyes poked out or your nose cut off? Because they're both painful. I mean, those are 2 of the most incredible environments in college football. It'll play a role Saturday. It'll play a role in Athens, particularly early on. These games, when you have these big, what have become rivalry games and iconic college football playoff games that have college football playoff implication games like this, it's really important to get off to fast starts. If Alabama doesn't go in there and they don't get into start off fast, it can be a problem. And you get that crowd into it, particularly offensively. You get that crowd into it, and you can't hear, and you have communication issues. But look, they're both used to playing like that on the road. They know that. But you can't ignore the fact that Athens, playing in Athens, will definitely have an impact on the game for sure.
When you look at where both teams are right now, who is this game bigger for at this moment?
I think it's bigger for Kalen DeBoer. I don't think there's any question. I mean, they've already had one game right now that they wish they could have back, right? You don't want 2 of those out of 4 and when you're the head coach at the University of Alabama. It's just fact. If Kirby, stumbles and falls in this game, they'll pick up everything and move forward and go, right? People just say move on to the next one. I know what it's like in the state of Alabama, still live there. That's not how it works, right? So I think this is a huge game for Kalen, and I'm not saying that he's got to go in there and win. I'm just saying that, this needs to be a close football game. It needs to be a hard-fought football game. I think Kalen DeBoer and Alabama need to go in there and show that we are physical. We can stand toe-to-toe with guys. I think they need to go in there and make the statement. When we get in these games, we can be disciplined. We can execute. We can impose our will. We can do all those things that if you're going to be a championship team, which they've been in the past, those are all the traits you've seen of those teams, right? So there's just things in this game that Alabama needs to show. But I think it's a game of huge importance for Kalen DeBoer, just to make sure that the narrative and the optics look like this is an ascending football team, even if they don't win it.
Alabama's most dedicated fan plans to be in the seats on Saturday.
Stick with us to hear Tommy Ray's view on the rivalry from 1964 to now.
Now back to your SEC station WAAY 31 special, The Battle Between the Hedges with Max and Trevor.
From their defensive architect to their biggest rival, Kirby Smart's been a major part of Alabama's story the last 2 decades. He's accomplished everything under the sun as the Bulldogs head coach, but for one reason or another, Alabama still has his number.
A 108-19 record, 20 first-round draft picks, 2 national championships. In 10 seasons at Georgia, Kirby Smart has put together a Hall of Fame resume. But one team continues to dominate the Bulldogs. Last year, Kirby's record fell to 1-6 against the Crimson Tide.
I don't know. What's our bouncer's record against them? Has anybody got one better than 1-6? Displayed them 6 times? I don't think so. I think they got really good players. They got a great program. I got an immense amount of respect for them. They do a great job. I mean, Nick's recruited good players. Kalen's gotten good players in here, and it's a tough battle. Of those 2 of them been here. And they've been tough. They've been really tough battles. So a lot of credit to those guys and a lot of respect for them.
Kirby has a point there. Since 2016, no team has beaten the Crimson Tide more than twice. This will also be Smart's first time facing Alabama at home. Georgia puts its 33-game home winning streak on the line. It's the longest streak by an SEC team since Alabama won 57 in a row under Bear Bryant.
Playing at home, it helps. The atmosphere helps. The crowd noise helps. Being familiar with your surroundings and all that stuff helps. But at the end of the day, you got to go play football. And it comes down to matchups. It comes down to who blocks and tackles the best, who executes and does things in the key moments of the game. So certainly glad it's at home, but we still got to play well.
Will home cooking help Kirby turn the tide in this rivalry, or will Kalen DeBoer continue to carry on Nick Saban's dominance over the Dogs? They've been the 2 most successful teams in the SEC the last decade. Now they battle between the hedges for the first time in a decade.
And one of the top defensive players of the Kirby Smart era happens to be from right here in North Alabama. Former James Clemens Jet Monty Rice led the Bulldogs in tackles in 2019, and he played the Crimson Tide a number of times. When Rice was at Georgia, they played them in 3 different settings: a national championship, an SEC title game, and in the regular season. Every single one a high-stakes battle with all of the nation watching. But I was surprised by what Rice said about the week leading up to facing Alabama. He said they really do treat it the same as if they were taking on any other opponent.
Listen, man, I remember when I was a freshman at Georgia, we were playing Sanford, and I thought maybe it was going to be like, chill, relax. No, if anything, it was more tuned up, like it don't matter where we playing, Alabama A&M, James Clemens, they going to prepare the same way, you know what I'm saying? And just have attention to detail and, have a good game plan, and so those guys can go execute and play fast.
And maybe that's one of the secrets behind Georgia's dominance over the years, the consistency and the preparation, regardless of who's in front of them. This week, they'll try to conquer Alabama in the regular season for the first time since 2007.
Many of college football's legendary rivalries have one play that stands above the rest. Cal and Stanford have the play. LSU and Ole Miss have Billy Cannon's Halloween run, and Georgia and Alabama have 2nd and 26. And one former Westminster Christian player had a pretty good view at one of the greatest plays the sport has ever seen.
Not a few seconds after the snap, I see Smitty wide open. And I remember just yelling at the top of my lungs right as Tua was about to release it, just yelling, Smitty, at the top of my lungs. And at that point, we knew it's just a matter of time before he catches the ball and, everything breaks loose on the sideline in celebration.
Jacob Parker may not be a household name, but the former Alabama walk-on tight end was there for the moment no Tide fan will ever forget as Tua Tagovailoa and Devontae Smith connected on 2nd down and 26 to win the national championship game.
It's hard to describe what's going through your head. I remember, I think I just attempted to tackle a few people. Still in family and friends, group messages, football season rolls around, it's getting a good bit of mentions. It's certainly a good memory.
But one of the things that gets lost over time is just how wild it was that Tua was even in that spot. The true freshman had played in several games that season, but it was Jalen Hurts that led the team there. Then Alabama went into the half down 2 scores, and Coach Saban made a change.
It went from a feeling that we're doomed. I mean, it's 13-0, we can't move the ball, to, we're going to win this thing. We knew at the time what the world hadn't found out yet, and that's how good Tua actually was. So when we found out we were making the shift at halftime, just the whole attitude shift. Like, we knew he was going to come in and bring the spark that we needed. And, really, we gave up, a 75-yard touchdown pass in the third quarter, missed a game-winning field goal as time expired in regulation. But really, I think we should have won that game fairly easily after making the shift in the second half.
Sure, Tua threw a pick and then was later sacked in overtime, but he made up for it all with one throw, the play that would write the final chapter of Parker's college football career.
That was my last game with Alabama. So to go out on something like that, I mean, I'm not sure you could pick a better ending. I still, my wife still says that's the best college football game she's ever been to. And it was a lot of fun, and it was definitely a great exclamation point on a career at playing for Nick Saban, University of Alabama.
When it comes to the history between Georgia and Alabama, there's a bunch. So who better to talk about the rivalry than someone that's been in the stadium the last 24 times they've played? Huntsville's own Tommy Ray.
Well, here we go again.
Tommy Ray has been to 676 consecutive Crimson Tide games. When he sits down in Sanford Stadium on Saturday, you can add one more to the tally. During his incredible run, he's seen Alabama play Georgia 24 times, watching 17 Crimson Tide wins. But the first time he ever saw the Dogs was back before his streak even started in 1964.
The first game of the year, Alabama opened up against Georgia, and that was actually the second game I ever saw. First one was in '63. So the first game of '64, Alabama was playing Georgia, and Joe Namath was the quarterback, and And it was Vince Dooley's first game. Of course, I didn't realize at that time he would become a legend.
Since then, Ray has seen the greats on both sides of the rivalry, from Julio Jones and the GOAT to Matt Stafford and Kirby.
You know, historically, that when they play, I mean, it obviously means something very much. And you're either going to face them now or later in the SEC championship, because Georgia's, you know, especially with Kirby over there, they're going to be in the run for it. And of course, it's the first thing I see is I just think physical. I mean, it's going to be very physical in 60 minutes, and both teams are going to be fired up, ready for it, and pumped up. And both teams has had a week off, so they'll be rested and healthy. So, yeah, anytime you see that G on the schedule, you know you're going to be in for a run.
And before last year's game, Ray got to check an item off his bucket list, meeting Coach Saban on the College game day set.
Tommy, how you doing? Good. Appreciate your support for all these years, man.
And even though he's seen more games than most fans can dream of, he's still excited every Saturday.
Yeah, the fire's still there after all that many games, yeah. It would be easy to stay at home, sleep late on a Saturday, and get up and turn the TV on, watch it, and sit here and relax. But hadn't seen a live game on TV since '71, so it'd be very strange. It would be very, very strange to sit and watch them live on TV. So, and it'll happen one day. But like I said before, I just always leave that in the Lord's hands and let Him determine it. And when He says enough's enough, it's enough.
And the two of us have been to a lot of college football games, but nearly 700 in a row is quite something else. You will be there for this big matchup. What are you expecting?
Well, I think the crazy thing about this, think about where these teams have faced, right? Indianapolis, Atlanta a lot of times. First one in Athens since 2015. That's going to be a big advantage for the Georgia Bulldogs on Saturday, I think. First time Kirby Smart Air at Sanford Stadium facing Alabama.
It's going to be a huge game, and of course you can watch it on WAAY 31, 6:30 Saturday night. Trevor can't wait for it. I can't wait for it. Let's hope it's a good one.
You have been watching a special presentation of WAAY 31 Sports.